Hello everyone, and welcome to the M.O.W. channel. Today, we're going to talk about the American serial killer known as Slavemaster. Don't forget to hit the subscribe and like buttons. Let's get started. The story we're about to uncover is a record of how one man's deceptive life transformed into a series of organized murders. The central figure of this crime is John Edward Robinson. On the surface, he appeared to be the perfect family man and a respected member of his community. But in reality, he was a serial con man driven by greed and a desire for control. His entire life was a carefully constructed facade, and his criminal activities quietly spanned decades across Kansas City and Missouri. John Edward Robinson was born on December 27, 1943, in Cicero, Illinois. His family life was complicated and unstable. His father was an abusive alcoholic, and his mother was a strict disciplinarian. As the third of 5 children, he grew up in this environment, likely learning early on how to hide his inner turmoil and project an ideal image to the outside world. One of his earliest and most visible successes was becoming an Eagle Scout in 1957. Eagle Scout is one of the highest honors a youth can achieve in the United States, showing how easily he could appear to follow rules and moral standards. He even traveled to London with his scout troop, performed in front of Queen Elizabeth II, and had an event where he was kissed by the actress Judy Garland. These experiences probably reinforced his obsession with outward success and appearances. However, Robinson's formal education revealed his unstable nature. He enrolled in Quigley Preparatory Seminary in Chicago, a private school for future priests, but dropped out after a year. School records show he struggled academically, failed classes, got into fights with classmates, and spent a lot of time in detention. He had trouble submitting to rules and authority, suggesting his deviant behavior didn't just start in adulthood. In 1961, he enrolled in Morton Junior College in Cicero to become a medical radiologist, but dropped out after 2 years. Rather than pursue expertise through education, he always chose quick success and deceitful shortcuts. In 1964, Robinson moved to Kansas City, married Nancy Jellange, and began a seemingly normal family life, eventually having 4 children. This stable family image became the perfect backdrop for his double life, but his economic activities quickly turned into criminal schemes. In 1969, he was arrested in Kansas City for embezzling $33,000 at a clinic using a forged license. This was the official start of his long criminal career. He was sentenced to 3 years of probation, but he didn't stop committing crimes. The following year, he moved to Chicago without permission, violating his probation, and was arrested again in 1971 for embezzlement. While working as an insurance salesman, his probation continued to be extended, and in 1975, he was arrested again for securities and mail fraud, connected to a fake medical consulting company he founded. This shows how prolific his scams were. Robinson's most cunning tactic was using the community's trust as a tool for crime. He became a scout leader, baseball coach, and Sunday school teacher, wearing the mask of a good neighbor. One notable example in 1977 highlighted his arrogance and manipulation skills. After being appointed to a local charity board, he forged letters between the charity's executive director, the Kansas City mayor, and other civic leaders to nominate himself as the charity's Person of the Year. He even hosted a luncheon to celebrate his own award. This audacious self-promotion shows how skilled he was at controlling perception and even creating situations to praise himself. He wasn't just a con man, he built a perfect fictional world centered on himself. Even after completing probation in 1979, his crimes continued. He was arrested again for embezzlement and check forgery and spent 60 days in jail in 1982. After his release, he engaged in even more ruthless scams. He started a fake hydroponics business and stole $25,000 from a friend, money that the friend had saved for his dying wife's medical treatment. Robinson showed he could exploit even people's most desperate pain for his own financial gain. Robinson's early criminal record clearly shows he would do anything to get money, control, and social status. He constantly set up new scam companies, forged documents, and betrayed people's trust. All his actions were driven by a deep desire to control others' lives. By the mid-1980s, this drive escalated beyond fraud and embezzlement into murder. He was no longer satisfied with stealing money. He wanted to erase and control the lives of his victims completely. His deadly deception was about to enter the real world, targeting actual human lives. His next step was luring young women with fake job offers, making them disappear, and erasing all traces. Robinson's life had been a series of cons, and his shift to murder showed how extreme his need for control had become. He was now ready to reveal the monster hiding behind his mask. If John Edward Robinson's early life was a series of cons and embezzlement, by the mid-1980s, his crimes had entered a far darker and more deadly stage. He transformed from a mere con man into a serial killer, systematically targeting young, vulnerable women to satisfy his need for control and financial greed. During this period, his methods were very consistent, suggesting that these crimes were not impulsive murders, but part of a carefully planned and concealed operational system. The core of that system involved fake business opportunities, forged documents, and completely covering up disappearances. In 1984, Robinson set up 2 additional shell companies. He hired 19-year-old Paula Galen Godfrey to work as a sales associate for his management consulting company, M.O.W. Godfrey was a young woman eager to build her career, and Robinson exploited that ambition. He told her family that he was sending her and a group of similar-aged women to San Antonio, Texas, to enroll in an office skills program. On September 1, 1984, Robinson picked up Godfrey from her home in Overland Park, Kansas, to take her to the airport. That was the last time she was seen. When Godfrey's parents couldn't reach her, they reported her missing. The police questioned Robinson, but he adamantly claimed he didn't know her whereabouts. A few days later, her parents received a shocking letter through the mail. It was typed but appeared to be signed by Godfrey. In it, she thanked Robinson for his help, claimed she was fine, and said she didn't want to see her family for a while. Robinson used this forged letter to make her disappearance seem like a voluntary move or elopement. Since Godfrey was legally an adult and there was no evidence of wrongdoing, the investigation was quickly closed. To this day, Godfrey has never been found. This case became the blueprint for Robinson's murder pattern: lure the victim, kill her, and then use forgery to make it look like she chose to disappear. The 1985 case shows Robinson's cruelty and audacity at its peak. Using the alias John Osborne, he visited Hope House, a shelter for homeless women in Kansas City. There he met 19-year-old Lisa Stasi and her 4-month-old daughter, Tiffany Stasi. Lisa had told relatives that she was joining a program designed to help young mothers called the Kansas City Outreach Program. Robinson deceived her into believing she could live and study for her GED for free through the fake program. He promised her a stable job and life in Chicago and had her sign blank sheets of paper, which he would later use to cover up his crimes. In early January 1985, Lisa and Tiffany checked into a motel in Overland Park, paid for by Robinson. On January 10, Robinson reportedly dropped Lisa and Tiffany at Lisa's sister-in-law's house, before returning them to the motel. After that, Lisa disappeared. Here, Robinson carried out one of his most horrifying cons. A few days later, he contacted his brother and sister-in-law, claiming Lisa had committed suicide and that he knew about her baby. He demanded $5,500 in attorney fees in exchange for Tiffany. He even gave them adoption papers that looked authentic, complete with forged signatures from 2 lawyers and a judge. Robinson had killed a woman and sold her baby to his own brother, all while making it look legally legitimate through meticulous forgery. Tiffany grew up under the name Heather Robinson, and her real identity wasn't confirmed until a DNA test after Robinson's arrest and investigation in 2000. This case shows that Robinson didn't just murder his victims. He manipulated their children and family relationships, revealing his extreme antisocial personality. Lisa Stasi's body has never been found. In 1987, 27-year-old Catherine Frances Climpitt became another victim. She had moved from Wichita Falls, Texas, to Kansas City to find work. She responded to an ad for Robinson's M.O.W. consulting company, which promised extensive travel and a new wardrobe to attract young women. Robinson hired her, and Climpitt began staying in several hotels near the M.O.W. office. On June 15, 1987, she left for a meeting with Robinson and was never seen again. Her disappearance remains unsolved. From these early murders, it's clear that Robinson's motives went beyond sexual desire. His pattern was based on financial gain and total control. He earned the victims' trust with promises of jobs and success, stole their money or potential assets, and then erased their existence from society. Forging documents or embezzling the property of missing victims was a key element of every one of his crimes. Between 1987 and 1993, Robinson served time in prison in Kansas and Missouri for other fraud charges. These stints temporarily paused his murders, but did not curb his desire for control. In fact, prison became the place where he met his next victim, 49-year-old Beverly Bonner, who worked as a prison librarian. After his release in January 1994, Bonner moved to Kansas to work for him, leaving her husband. Robinson made her send her alimony checks to a Kansas P.O. box and then made her disappear. Her family never heard from her again, but her mother continued sending checks for years, which Robinson cashed. In this way, he continued to exploit his victims financially. Even after killing them, Robinson's early crimes provide a crucial foundation for understanding his later crimes. Through countless frauds, he had perfected forgery, trust manipulation, and financial scams. When these skills combined with murder, the most extreme form of crime, he became a nearly untraceable, deadly serial killer. His murder pattern functioned flawlessly throughout the 1980s, and police often stopped investigations early, deceived by his forged letters and documents. His early victims, Paula Godfrey, Lisa Stasi, Catherine Climpitt, and Beverly Bonner, were all sacrifices to his hidden double life, obsessive need for control, and endless greed. Even after prison, he strengthened his criminal system, and, with access to the internet, prepared to expand his killing spree on an unprecedented scale. His life was a massive fortress of lies and forgery, and now he had new digital tools to expand it. In 1994, when John Edward Robinson was released from prison, The world was changing rapidly. The internet had opened up a whole new digital space. Robinson became one of the first serial killers to use this new technology to combine his obsessive need for control with his deadly deception. Online, he adopted the name Slavemaster. Far from hiding his pathological nature, the alias actually revealed his core motivation: a desire to completely dominate and control others. Robinson began roaming internet chat rooms, especially those where women interested in submissive roles in sexual relationships gathered. The anonymity of the online world gave him access to an endless pool of potential victims, far beyond any geographic limit. He used this anonymity to present himself as a wealthy businessman or philanthropist. This fake identity was an extension of the trust manipulation techniques he had perfected in his previous scams, now applied in the digital space. His first online victims were Sheila Faith, 45, and her 15-year-old daughter Debbie Faith, who used a wheelchair due to spina bifida. Robinson approached Sheila, claiming to be a wealthy businessman and philanthropist. He promised to pay for Debbie's expensive medical care and provide Sheila with a stable job, luring the mother-daughter pair. With hope, Sheila moved from Fullerton, California, to Kansas City in 1994. But as soon as they arrived, both disappeared. After killing them, Robinson continued to exploit their financial assets, regularly cashing Sheila Faith's pension checks for 7 years. This case showed that his crimes were motivated not just by sexual fantasy, but by ongoing financial gain. He exploited social welfare and financial systems using the victims' disappearances, and this pattern carried over into the digital era. Within BDSM chat rooms, Robinson's alias Slavemaster gradually gained notoriety. He approached women interested in submissive relationships, promising to improve their lives through his dominance. His scheme combined jobs, money, and control in a way that made victims psychologically vulnerable. In 1999, his next victim was 21-year-old Izabela Lewicka, a Polish immigrant living in Indiana. Robinson offered her a job and simultaneously proposed a bondage-style relationship. When Lewicka moved to Kansas City, he gave her an engagement ring and took her to the county registrar, paying for a marriage license. Even though he was still married, he convinced Lewicka that they were married or would be soon. She told her parents she was married but didn't disclose his name. Robinson isolated his victims and made them keep key details secret, making it easier to cover up his crimes. The most shocking part of the Lewicka case was that she signed a document that formally outlined Robinson's pathological need for control. He had her sign a 115-item slave contract, which gave him control over nearly every aspect of her life, including her bank accounts. This document showed that Robinson wasn't just seeking sexual encounters, he wanted to completely strip his victims of identity and freedom. Lewicka disappeared in 1999. Robinson lied to a web designer he hired, saying she had been caught using marijuana and deported, hiding his actions. Even after killing his victims, he damaged their reputations, making them appear like troubled social outcasts rather than crime victims. In March 2000, 27-year-old practical nurse Suzette Trouten became his next target. She moved from Michigan to Kansas to travel with Robinson as a submissive sex slave. After her disappearance, her mother received several typed letters, supposedly signed by her daughter. The letters seemed to be sent while the couple was overseas, but all had Kansas City postmarks. Trouten's mother noticed that the letters contained no typos, which seemed odd. Like his earlier victims, Robinson used these typed forgeries to create false hope that her daughter was alive and safe, delaying any investigation. He even exploited the suffering of victims' families as tools for his crimes. Robinson used the internet to evolve his existing criminal methods perfectly. Previously, he had to find victims in person, but with the alias Slavemaster, he could lure vulnerable women from across the country into his digital trap. He offered jobs, financial stability, and sexual fantasies, bringing women to Kansas City. Once under his control, they became isolated, and through forged documents, their identities were completely under his authority. Robinson's crimes blurred the lines between cybercrime and serial murder, serving as an early warning about how dangerous the internet could be. As a hunting ground, his Slavemaster activity progressed quietly, but lethally through the late 1990s online culture. The continuous, consistent disappearances eventually drew the attention of Kansas and Missouri authorities. Robinson's digital mask was on the verge of collapsing. His carelessness and arrogance began to expose weaknesses in his meticulously built criminal system. Clues related to the disappearances of his final two victims, Lewicka and Trouten, would ultimately lead to his arrest and the shocking discoveries that followed. His crimes were moving from secret manipulation toward the dramatic risk of exposure. For decades, John Edward Robinson had covered his crimes with carefully crafted deception and fraud, but in the end, his arrogance and carelessness led to his downfall. By the late 1990s, his name began to come up repeatedly in a series of disappearances that crossed the Kansas-Missouri state line. Authorities started paying attention to his movements, but Robinson was still using his skills in forgery and fraud to cleverly avoid detection. At the peak of his criminal activity, Robinson grew bolder and less cautious. Ironically, the key to his arrest didn't come from rape or murder charges, but from relatively minor incidents. In June 2000, a woman accused Robinson of sexual assault at his farm, near La Cena, Kansas. Another woman reported that he had stolen her sex toy. That theft charge gave investigators the legal grounds they needed to get a search warrant for Robinson's farm. For the first time, law enforcement gained legal access to his secret space. When a task force searched Robinson's farm in June 2000, they discovered something horrifying beyond imagination. In a corner of the property, they found 2 large chemical drums, each weighing 85 pounds. When the drums were opened, they contained the decomposed bodies of 2 women. DNA and dental records later confirmed that the bodies belonged to Robinson's final 2 internet victims, Isabella Lewick and Suzanne Trouten. The true identity of the serial killer hiding behind the name Slavemaster was revealed the moment those drum lids were lifted. This shocking discovery immediately expanded the investigation into Missouri. Robinson had also rented a warehouse across the state line and was using 2 garages there. Investigators searched the warehouse and found 3 more sealed chemical drums, each containing a body. These were identified as Robinson's previous victims: prison librarian Beverly Bonner, and mother-daughter Sheila Faith and Debbie Faith, who had been lured online. Finding a total of 5 bodies sealed in chemical drums was both the horrifying climax of Robinson's crimes and physical proof of his obsessive need for control. After killing his victims, he placed their bodies in drums to permanently erase their identities and fully conceal his crimes. Moving the bodies across state lines also complicated jurisdiction and further obstructed investigations. Forensic examinations revealed that all 5 women had been struck at least once on the head with a blunt instrument. This showed that Robinson had used a consistent killing method over the years, proving that his crimes were not impulsive, but deliberate and systematic serial murders. He lured, isolated, and murdered his victims, then disposed of their bodies in the most gruesome way possible to make it seem as if they had never existed. The discovery of the drum bodies confirmed that Robinson was not just a con artist or forger, but a ruthless serial killer who had murdered at least 8 people over decades. The case shocked the United States, and Robinson earned the notorious title of Internet Slave Master. As the first serial killer known to lure victims online, Robinson was arrested in Kansas shortly after the bodies were found, and he was finally brought before the courts to face the consequences of his deceptive life. His carefully constructed double life had collapsed, and his countless lies and forged documents could no longer protect him. Law enforcement and prosecutors began connecting his history of scams to his murder patterns, concluding that previously unsolved disappearances including Paula Godfrey, Lisa Stasi, Catherine Klumpit, and Beverly Bonner were likely his doing. DNA tests also confirmed that Lisa Stasi's daughter Tiffany, who had been secretly adopted by Robinson's brother, was indeed Lisa's child. This revealed just how far Robinson's crimes penetrated families and the legal system. The bodies found in the drums provided the strongest and most concrete evidence of Robinson's crimes. They gave authorities the proof they needed to charge him with at least 5 murders. His arrest and the discovery of the drum bodies marked the climax of this horrifying story. Now, the only thing left was legal justice for all of his crimes. His deception had ended, his control was broken, and he finally faced the ultimate authority of the justice system. This case will be remembered as one of the most horrific crimes committed in the digital age. With the discovery of the drum bodies at John Edward Robinson's farm and warehouse, his deceptive life finally came to an end. His fate was now in the hands of the American justice system. Robinson was charged with multiple murders in both Kansas and Missouri, marking the start of a long, complex, and painful legal process. His crimes spanning 2 states required unusual legal cooperation and coordination. In 2002, Robinson went to trial in Kansas first. He was charged with the murders of his internet victims Suzanne Trouten and Isabella Lewick, as well as the 1985 disappearance and murder of Lisa Stasi. The trial was one of the longest criminal trials in Kansas history, reflecting the intensity of the proceedings. The prosecution presented evidence showing how Robinson lured his victims, killed them, concealed their bodies, and exploited their financial assets. He was found guilty on all counts. The jury recognized the brutality of his crimes and sentenced him to death for the murders of Trouten and Lewick. For Lisa Stasi, he received a life sentence because her murder occurred before Kansas reinstated the death penalty. This verdict was a clear and firm condemnation of Robinson's heinous actions. But the legal battle didn't end there. After being convicted in Kansas, Robinson was also charged with murder in Missouri, where the drum bodies had been found. The Missouri prosecutors pursued the death penalty for 5 murders, including Beverly Bonner, the Faith mother and daughter, and also listed Paula Godfrey and Catherine Klumpit, whose bodies had not been recovered. Robinson's defense team worked desperately to avoid a death sentence in Missouri. The prosecutors in Missouri faced challenges as well. Technically, the case wasn't perfect. It was difficult to prove that the murders had taken place within Missouri's jurisdiction. Although the bodies were found there, Establishing exactly where the killings occurred was complicated. Because of this incomplete technical evidence, the prosecution had to consider a plea deal. Robinson, facing almost certain death if tried in Missouri, was under pressure to accept the deal to escape the legal threat. In the end, a deal was reached. The prosecution acknowledged they had sufficient evidence for the deaths of Godfrey, Klumpit, Bonner, and the Faith family in exchange for Robinson pleading guilty. In October 2003, Robinson carefully entered guilty pleas for the 5 murders. Technically, the court accepted his guilty plea, but observers noted that his statements showed no sign of remorse or acceptance of real responsibility toward the victims. Robinson refused to give up his sense of emotional control to the end. As a result of the plea deal, he was sentenced to life without parole for each of the 5 murders in Missouri. Combined with his death sentence in Kansas, Robinson would spend the rest of his life in prison. Even after incarceration, Robinson's legal saga continued. In November 2015, the Kansas Supreme Court overturned some of his convictions for Troughton and Stasi on technical grounds related to procedural errors. However, the conviction and death sentence for Lewicka remained intact. This marked the first case since Kansas reinstated the death penalty in 1994, where the state's highest court upheld a death sentence. Today, John Edward Robinson remains on death row at El Dorado Correctional Facility in Kansas. The impact of Robinson's crimes extended far beyond the courtroom. In 2005, his wife Nancy Robinson filed for divorce after 41 years of marriage, citing irreconcilable differences and finally cutting ties with him. The most significant long-term effect was on Tiffany Stasi, the daughter of one of his youngest victims, Lisa Stasi. Tiffany grew up under the name Heather Robinson due to the fake adoption. In 2006, she filed a civil lawsuit against Truman Medical Center in Kansas City and social worker Karen Gardis, claiming the social worker had been deceived by Robinson's fake charity that supposedly helped unwed mothers and had connected her and her mother to him. In 2007, Heather Robinson settled with the hospital for a private amount and announced she would share the funds with her maternal grandmother, Patricia Sylvester. That same year, she secured a court ruling preventing Robinson from profiting in any way from books, movies, or other media about his crimes. This was an important victim-centered legal victory to stop a criminal from exploiting his notoriety for personal gain. The John Edward Robinson case is more than just the story of a serial killer. It is a powerful example of how anonymity in the digital age can combine with old-school deception to create a new kind of horror. It is also a warning about how careful we need to be about fake identities online, and how far human malice can go when social trust is abused. Robinson's crimes destroyed countless families, but his prosecution and the legal consequences brought at least some measure of justice for the victims. His cruel control finally ended. While he remains behind bars, the dark lessons of his crimes will forever be a part of society's memory. That's all for today's story. Please subscribe, like, and turn on notifications. Tomorrow, we'll be back with a new case and another mystery.